Here in the sleepy Banjar of Cimagi on the island of Bali in Indonesia, I'm standing in a rice paddy field. And if you look around, it looks like the perfect, pristine example of nature at its best. However, if you look a little deeper and you go into the soil, all is not what it seems. The reality is that these rice paddy fields have been farmed so intensively for the last 30 years that there's almost zero microbial content in the soil. And that is one of the projects that Laconic is working on here in Bali. Only 100 meters away from where I'm standing is the Laconic office with a soil lab in the back of that office. What we're doing here is taking samples of soil on land that we've become the custodians of for the next 5 to 10 years, working with local farmers. And with those soil samples, we're actually going to see what's missing. The reality is pretty much all of the healthy bacteria that should be in the soil is missing because the area has been farmed so intensively using nitrogen fixers, urea, highly toxic pesticides and highly toxic herbicides. Another problem that we have here is that because those products are sprayed on the crops and the rice paddies are flooded, the water that runs off runs into the local streams, which then go out into the ocean, and we have a net effect from all of the rice paddy fields all over Bali sending in pollutants into the ocean. If that wasn't bad enough, as we'll see later, there's also a huge amount of garbage, plastic garbage, that comes down the streams and ends up in our seas. So looking around, it looks green and it looks pristine, but it's pretty much all chemically induced. And our short-term and long-term goals here is to change all of that. We're going to be using these rice paddy fields here, about half a hectare, to actually show a better way of farming. That's going to be using regenerative practices where we put the bacteria and the molds back in the soils. We pull back on use of any chemical fertilizers or pesticides. And we also encourage local wildlife to come back in and do its thing. We're going to be planting wildflower borders of about 1 meter to 1.5 meters around the rice paddy fields. And those borders are going to contain a complete array of indigenous wildflowers. The purpose of that is to encourage insect life back into the area. That insect life helps to keep naturally the bugs down, and it also helps to create resilience because there's a cross-pollination from those insects into the crops that enable the crops to become healthier and for the ecosystem to start flourishing. The sad thing about standing here, even though we can hear birds in the trees, is that when you look closely, it's a very rare moment when you can actually see a bug of any kind, be that a beetle or a butterfly or a dragonfly, any bugs on these crops, because as beautiful and pretty and as green as they look, they're actually a toxic minefield when it comes to insect and animal life.